When Nicanor learned that Judas was in the vicinity of Samaria, he decided to attack him on the Sabbath day, since this day of rest would give Nicanor's troops complete safety. The Jews who had been forced to join his army protested, "Don't destroy them in such a barbaric and savage way. Respect the Sabbath, for it has been declared holy by the one who sees all things." But that most hated wretch mocked, "Is there some ruler in heaven who has commanded that the Sabbath be observed as a special day?" They replied, "It is the living Lord, the ruler in heaven, who commands the observance of the Sabbath." But Nicanor said, "Well, I am sovereign upon earth, and I command you to take up arms and carry out your duty to the king." Even so, he was not able to carry out his cruel plan. Nicanor was filled with immense pride, and he thought he would erect a public monument to commemorate his victory over Judas and his army. But Maccabeus never lost his trust that the Lord would help them. He urged his people not to fear the attack of the Gentiles but to remember the help they had previously received from God. The Almighty would surely give them victory. He encouraged them with passages from the Law and the Prophets and recalled the battles they had won before, so they became enthusiastic. Then, after he had encouraged them, he issued his orders. At the same time, he pointed out that the Gentiles had lied and broken their oaths. He armed all his people, not so much with the protection of shields and spears, but with the inspiration of his bold speech. He inspired them even more by telling them about a dream, a vision, as it were, worthy to be believed. This was the vision. Onias, who was formerly the high priest, was a good and virtuous man. He was modest in appearance, gentle in manner, and graceful in speech, and he had been trained in every virtue from the time he was a child. One day he was praying with lifted hands for the whole Jewish community. At that moment another man appeared whose age and dignity made him look very distinguished and whose presence conveyed a noble authority. When Onias saw him, he said, "This is a man who loves his fellow Jews. He prays often for his people and for the holy city. It is Jeremiah, the prophet of God." Then Jeremiah reached out his right hand and gave Judas a gold sword, saying, "Take this holy sword, a gift from God, and use it to kill your enemies." That was all the people needed. Judas had stirred up the courage and strengthened the hearts of the young men. They now were eager to make this a quick fight and to attack bravely, deciding the matter in courageous hand-to-hand combat, for the holy city and the temple were in danger. Their concern for their wives, children, brothers, and relatives paled in comparison with their first and foremost concern, the holy temple. And everyone in the city was very concerned for those who were going to fight in the open country. Everyone was ready for a decisive battle. Nearby, the enemy was set in formation, with the elephants in strategic position and the horsemen on the flanks. Maccabeus looked at the advancing army with its many types of armor and its savage elephants. Then he raised his hands towards heaven and called upon the Lord, who works wonders and gives victory to those who deserve it. For Maccabeus knew that battles are not won merely by weapons but according to the Lord's plan. In his prayer Maccabeus said, "O Lord, you sent your angel in the days of Hezekiah, king of Judah, and he killed 185,000 people in Sennacherib's camp. Now, O ruler of heaven, send a good angel to spread fear and dread before us. With your mighty arm, strike down those who come with blasphemy against your holy people." And so he concluded his prayer. Nicanor and his soldiers advanced with trumpets and marching songs. Judas and his men met the enemy with prayers and cries to God. Fighting with their hands while praying to God with their hearts, they killed at least 35,000 men. They were ecstatic over this display of God's power. And when the battle was over and they were returning with joy, they discovered Nicanor, lying dead in full armor. With wild shouts, they blessed the sovereign Lord in Hebrew, the language of their ancestors. Judas had completely devoted himself, body and soul, to defending his people, and he loved his fellow Jews ever since childhood. Now he ordered that Nicanor's head and arm be cut off and carried to Jerusalem. When he arrived there, he called all the people together and stationed the priests before the altar. Then he sent for the remaining troops in the citadel. He showed them the head of that evil and profane Nicanor and the arm he had raised with proud boasts against the holy temple of the Almighty. Then he cut out the tongue of the wicked Nicanor and ordered that it be fed piece by piece to the vultures. And to show what had happened to Nicanor for his foolish deeds, Judas hung Nicanor's arm in front of the sanctuary. Then everyone looked towards heaven and blessed the Lord, who had displayed his power. They said, "Blessed is he who has kept his temple undefiled." Finally, Judas hung Nicanor's head from the citadel as an obvious reminder of how the Lord had helped them. The people voted to institute an annual celebration on this day, the 13th day of the 12th month, which in Aramaic is called Adar. This is the day before Purim, the annual celebration of Mordecai's victory. So this is how things turned out with Nicanor. From that time until now, Jerusalem has been in the possession of the Hebrews. Now I will also make an end of my narration here. My goal was to make it well written and concise, but if it is poorly done or just mediocre, it is the best I could do. It is disagreeable to drink only wine or only water, but wine mixed with water is a pleasant drink that increases our enjoyment. In the same way, a story that is well written is pleasantly received by its readers. Let this, then, be the end.